raiders. Their principal targets were the major ports of Benghazi and Tobruk, as well as German fuel supplies. The Afrika Korps was now consuming 3 million gallons of fuel a week. Unfortunately, the whole raiding operation planned by headquarters at Middle East Command soon became the talk of Cairo bars. Security was compromised, and the enemy was waiting. The attacks went horribly awry. The commandos suffered serious casualties on the night of September 13th. As Sterling recalled, the whole plan sinned against every principle on which the SAS was founded. The SAS lost 6 dead, 18 wounded, and 5 missing in action. 45 jeeps and trucks were destroyed. As part of the overall plan, the LRDG mounted a raid on the town of Barche, requiring a long march of 1,150 miles across the desert. Codenamed Operation Caravan, the raid was led by another of the great desert raiders, Major Jack Easonsmith. The raiding force consisted of 5 jeeps and 12 Chevrolet trucks. One of the Chevys was manned by Popsky and his group of raiders, who acted as guides into Barche. The New Zealanders of T-1 Patrol led the assault against Barche Airfield, and 32 Axis aircraft were destroyed. But the raid was costly, and T-1 Patrol lost many vehicles from air attacks as they withdrew. Only this Chevrolet, Te Anau 2, survived the raid. It was piled high with the wounded. They were rushed to a secret airstrip deep in the desert, where they were quickly evacuated to a hospital in LRDG aircraft. The Special Forces raids of September 13th caused great disruption and diverted many enemy troops from the front lines. On October 23, 1942, the Battle of El Alamein became the turning point of the North African campaign. The Germans and Italians were forced westward, never again to threaten Egypt and the Suez Canal. The SAS harried them every step of the way. On the march west, the LRDG and the SAS revisited the sites of many of their raids. Barghosh, Sidi Hanesh, Gazala, Tmimi, Slanta, Barche, Benghazi. At the peak of SAS operations in the desert, Sterling had some 200 men, 40 jeeps, and 40 supply trucks in action. His L detachment was renamed the 1st SAS Regiment, and Sterling was promoted to lieutenant colonel. After the Battle of El Alamein, the SAS discovered that over a third of all German transport vehicles were of Allied origin. They decided to use the recaptured vehicles with German markings intact to confuse German sentries in future raids. The trick worked, as the Afrika Korps gradually withdrew westward toward Tripoli. On November 7, 1942, the Anglo-American invasion of French North Africa is launched. Codename Operation Torch, the invasion squeezes the Germans between 2 converging Allied armies. Toward the end of the campaign, the 8th Army is held up by the heavily defended Mareth Line. the LRDG patrol locates a pass through the Matmata Hills. This became known as Wilder's Gap, named after an LRDG patrol commander. This route allowed the 8th Army to outflank the Mareth Line into Tunisia through an area which the Germans thought was impassable. After this battle, General Montgomery praised the exploits of the LRDG and the SAS, but the battle wasn't over yet. In the dense Tunisian countryside, SAS jeep operations had a more difficult time, and they began to suffer significant casualties. On January 24, 1943, just days after this photograph was taken, Sterling and his jeep patrol were captured by German paratroopers in Tunisia. After 4 escape attempts from various Italian prisoner-of-war camps, Sterling was sent to the notorious Colditz Castle, where he remained a POW for the rest of the war. Thereafter, the 8th Army joined up with the Allied 1st Army in the final push to crush the Axis partners in North Africa. Tunisia fell to the Allies on May 7, 1943. Between November 1940 and the end of the Desert War in the spring of 1943, the LRDG had at least one patrol active in the desolate sand seas at all times. They conducted over 200 missions with a high rate of success. Combining LRDG's intelligence gathering with SAS raids proved highly successful throughout the North African campaign. They inflicted remarkable damage on the enemy, despite their small numbers. The SAS destroyed more enemy aircraft in North Africa than the Royal Air Force. They were the Desert Raiders. Drawn from every country of the British Empire. They were tough, dependable, and courageous, fighting for a cause they knew to be just. Their contribution to the final victory over the Afrika Korps is immeasurable. After North Africa, they went on to fight other battles in Italy, the Aegean, and Europe. But they will be best remembered as the Desert Raiders. They were a breed apart.